Okay.
I wouldn't be here telling you my story if it weren't for these two people.
We came out the pub and I said, it's going to rain.
I'm hungry.
Oh, I told you not to eat so much cabbage. Hi and welcome to the Video Live's Winners Competition Special, where we get to show you who impressed us the most with stories from their lives. I'd like to welcome our judges as well, Margaret Pomeranz and also Robert Connolly. Thanks for joining us. And these two experts have sat in a darkened room for many hours, narrowing down the entries and finally, with the help of me, coming up with one winner. It was a very difficult process, but I also think we should check in and see how this adventure all began.
Want to see your work on the ABC website or maybe even broadcast on ABC2? Want a chance to win a high-definition video camera? Well, you should enter the Video Lives competition. Make a video and tell the rest of Australia your story. What's special about your place and your community? We want your place in our face. You can find all the details at abc.net.au/video lives. So hurry up and exercise your imagination. The competition closes 26th of August.
From that challenge, 140 stories came in from all across the country, even from one Aussie expat in Saudi Arabia. We saw some amazing characters.
They're just sewn onto a hat.
How they had fun with animals, minerals and vegetables. And how they travelled in style. The story showed incredible diversity and also showed us what was important in people's lives.
Hi, my name is Leslie Lucky and I am the male health worker at Edmundby Community, and I just want to show you what I do in the clinic. This is our little pharmacy room. We've got all the medical. So we've got a new emblem for a number. We've got everything here. We've got oxygen, everything.
Hi, I'm Kelly, and the guy behind the camera is Wags. We live in Exmouth, about 1,200 kilometres north of Perth in Western Australia.
All the streets in Inala are named after flowers, trees and shrubberies. And then later in the late 50s and the early 60s, they were all named after birds. It was enough to make a grown boy scream.
There we go, Canberra, Australia. I live here, in a suburb called Mackellar. My home, where I live with my mum, my dad, my younger brother and my bird Chino.
Outside of here is the real world, the land of reality, a land called the City of Newcastle, where I visit quite often. These various streets lead to different realms in the real world, and just over here is Home Street. So let's take a look down there and I'll show you where I really live.
I am 7 years old. I am the oldest kid in my family in Perth, and I'm just going to go and have a surf right now.
There are definitely some classic moments in there. Tonight on the program, we will be showing the 5 finalists of the Video Lives competition and letting you know who we thought was one of the best of those 5. And also, we'll be letting you know the winner of the Viewer's Choice Award, where you got to vote on the website for your favourite of the 5 finalists. Our judges tonight in this adventure, firstly, Margaret Pomeranz, a name that you will be very familiar with. She's been responsible for judging some of the hits and misses in the movie world, and she's stepped on the red carpet with some of the most famous and infamous identities in the movie world. Margaret, welcome.
Hi, Miff. It's lovely to be here.
It's good to have you here. And also another judge tonight, Robert Connolly, a name you'll be familiar with. He is behind a couple of great Aussie films, including $3 and The Bank. Welcome, Robert.
Nice to be here.
Now, tell me, both of you, how did you feel about the general standard of the entrants that we watched as part of Video Lives?
Well, I was mind blown. Yeah. You know, I looked at this and I thought the talent in this country is amazing. I mean, from all areas of the country, all ages.
You realise.
It's so different.
Yeah, the different points of view, the different ways people have told the story, you know, animation, more lyrical dramas.
Yeah, the senses of humour, the senses of pathos, a little bit of cruelty. It was very hard, I think, choosing the 5 finalists and choosing the winner out of those 5 was unbelievably difficult.
Well, even within those 5, the diversity of entrants, and also from where they came in the country, and also the backgrounds of everybody who was involved in the films, it was quite extraordinary. It really opened my eyes as to what types of people are into filmmaking, even on a very basic level, which I really enjoyed.
But it's amazing how film is such a powerful thing to draw you into these lives. You know, they're lives that you haven't experienced. One of them I did, I must say. I identified with the mother, but you know, the country ones, the different places, the different lives represented are so mesmerising and attractive.
Do you think too, you know, the technology now is just allowing people to tell their stories, whereas maybe someone might have written a short story about their life in the past. You know, the technology allows people to make incredibly accomplished films about their life. You know, people are, you know, that barrier that used to be there, which was you needed huge amounts of money to you know, express things about your life, it's gone now, which I think is just terrific. And what surprised me with watching all these finalists, you know, were the incredible different points of view. So I think if technology allows people to explore their life that otherwise might not, I think it's fantastic. And I think, you know, anything that kind of raises the bar of how people tell their stories kind of cinematically or visually, it's terrific.
And it's also about the richness of experiences in this country. You know, we're not a monoculture anymore.
That's right. It's very evident, isn't it, in these films?
And that's what I loved about so many of them.
Well, in no particular order, we're going to kick it off tonight with our first one, which is called Sydney Lights from Don Mears. And this is basically a film about a young man's, I guess, impression of the Sydney city lights when he was younger. Let's take a look.
Property on the outskirts of a rough frontier town, had a population of about 300 people. Country life was about floods and droughts, a lot of hard work. However, one of the most vivid memories I have about that part of my life are these long drives we would take when we had to go visit my grandmother, who lived in the city. Eyes ahead. Yeah, I'd be in the back seat asleep after about a 10-12 hour or so drive. Mum and Dad would wake me up just as we were coming over the mountains. It was always at night. Don't turn around. And in the distance was this sea of light. It sounds stupid, but being a young kid from the country, it was overwhelming seeing this massive city. Eyes ahead. I remember thinking at the time that all the stars in the sky must have fallen to the ground, because I couldn't see many stars at all in the sky, just millions of stars on the ground. Don't turn around. Anyway, several years later we left the bush, as it turned out, and actually came to live in the city. and I'll admit it was under sad circumstances.
Eyes ahead.
However, city life became a refuge for me, almost like a friend who'd ring up, you know, when you were feeling a bit down and say, come on, let's go out, let's go have some fun.
Don't turn around.
And that's really been the relationship with the city for me all these years.
Eyes ahead.
You know, as I get older, I try and think back to that part of my life, and really it's like an old faded dream of someone else.
Don't turn around.
It's hard to imagine that it's the same person. I hate to admit it, but sometimes I miss those wide open spaces and all those stars.
I couldn't walk away. Couldn't walk away. Couldn't walk away from you. Couldn't walk away. Couldn't walk away. I couldn't walk away.
A very poignant postcard there from Don Mears. Now, Robert, I know you are a country boy. You grew up in the country. Did this film, Sydney Lights, have any kind of resonance with you?
Oh, I grew up in the Blue Mountains, and some of my earliest memories were of, you know, falling asleep in the back of the car, looking through the windscreen with rain and kind of driving back or driving into the city. And look, I know as a filmmaker how hard it is to create the atmosphere that this film's achieved. You know, it's not a traditional kind of narrative story of this person's life. It's much more kind of lyrical. And it's so evocative of experiences that I had. And there's a great moment in it where it cuts to that big shot of the city and you see the buildings. And for me, what the filmmaker has managed to capture is the ability to look at something that you might take for granted, you know, Sydney skyline, and actually show it as he would have seen it as a child looking out at it. It feels like you're in Blade Runner. It feels like this big futuristic city, and so I think for the evocative quality of what he's done, it's quite an achievement.
I was curious though, you know, I felt a little bit cheated because he says, you know, that he came to the city as an adult under sad circumstances, and my curiosity is always piqued by something like that, and it's not answered in the film. And I sort of thought, I want to know.
I had a similar feeling, but then I thought about it and thought, well, maybe that's the power of the film. He doesn't tell us too much, and he kind of keeps that part to himself and keeps us engaged, wanting to know more. And yeah, definitely very evocative, I think.
I guess he manages by not revealing it, he manages to kind of focus on this idea, this just simple idea of that transition from the country to the city in Australia.
But the other thing that I think is so good about this film is the music.
Oh, yeah, it's wonderful, yeah.
Isn't it? It really adds to the whole piece. I thought it was extraordinarily powerful.
He underpins things with it, doesn't he? Like when you cut to that bit of the city, there's just a little change in the music.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite subtle what he's done with that music, because and I know it's very difficult to entwine music with a voiceover, because, you know, they can often work against each other, and somehow or other he's managed to have them kind of dovetail together. The sound quality of all of them is actually quite high, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, the post-production of the sound that they're obviously doing very limited resources is terrific.
Yes. No, it's so impressive. I mean, I love this one.
There was another aspect of it too that I really enjoyed, which was, and me coming from the country as well originally, is the fact that he shared with us the joy of being in the city and having that support network and having somewhere where he felt he belonged, but also the missing part of the aspects of country life that he hadn't experienced while he was in the city. And I just thought that was a really nice touch. It gave it that full circle feeling. I think it was a very clever piece.
Country stars again.
It's probably quite unique in the finalists as a kind of more lyrical, kind of poetic piece. You know, I think that's probably its strongest achievement, is that kind of evocative lyrical quality.
Yeah.
Our next finalist is from Mildura, Victoria, and it's by Thomas Klein. It's called Lelma. It's a very personal account of a man who's been working the land for many years. Let's take a look.
I first met Alan during the 2001 wheat harvest at Lelma Station. I found his ever-changing landscape challenged everyone who set foot upon it.
Yeah, well, we've been here 127 years. Jim and Andrew's boys, they'll be the 5th generation of Lamberts. Old G.J. Lambert, same initial as James's. He started here, he had teams on the road, and he selected a little place up here, about 4 mile. That was Viewpoint, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and he bought Chalky Well, Malleevale, and he had Lelma, and he bought a butcher shop in Merbean. He used to lease all the country around Yelta. He was going around his stock and his horse and sulky. Been around the day before, and the Murray was coming up in flood. And must have washed his creek out. He dropped his wheel of his sulky in and tipped the sulky over and tipped him out and hit him on the head and knocked him out. And drowned him. Hey. That was old GJ. You know, we were very lucky. Here a couple of months ago, I had to get a Pooncarey, get a Q fever needle. And we came out the pub and I said, it's going to rain. And that's where we got first rain. We got 2 inches on the top end country and went straight out nearly all over the cropping country, and that was our start. Yeah, we got 1 inch here, 2 inches up the top end, and later on another storm went through, dropped another 2 inches. And that's what broke the drought here. But you go out around Ivanhoe, I don't know what it's like now, but my year's been dry, very dry. Oh, the boys, well, the eldest boy, I don't know if you know Kelvin, but he started growing wheat here 15 years ago. But my grandfather used to grow wheat here too. And these blokes go up here, these soil testers and all this, and out there where the mailbox is, you'd grow a 3-foot high crop, no super, no nothing. We used to cut it for the horses. And the wheat, the way it's looking now, it should be nearly as good as year 2000. It's ideal now because you get the end of August, September, and it warms up. In spring, that'll be a crucial one, yeah. Winter boy sodas were nearly so dry. Oh, well, they bought barley and they bought oats. We've got little feeders we scatter around all over the place, around the water. And you go and fill them up every second day or something like that, and the sheep come in and they do all right on them too. And they paid quite a lot of money for that, but it paid dividends though. And we got out of the drought pretty good. Yeah. But if it kept going here up till 2 months ago, it kept on going now, well, I don't know what would happen, but all the sheep had been gone. It's been a disaster. Yeah. It would have definitely been as bad as the 1941, 45. But it wasn't as bad here as I've seen, because my father and I, during the war years, we cut scrub, feed the sheep. Never come to that, thank goodness. No, they're talking about how bad this drought was, but nowhere near as bad as the 40s. They got a short memory, some people. Not many can still remember it either. Well, we never had TV, you only had the old battery wireless and turned it on for the news and that was it. Oh, no, vastly different in my day. Yeah. You had to do it the old way, now it's all hydraulics and automatic business. Nowhere near to work in it. Not as like it used to be anyway. No.
That was Lelma by Thomas Klein. Margaret, what were your thoughts on that particular film?
I love the way it's so redolent of country Australia and of that generation of Australian men. You know, I love the rhythm of his speech. I like the way he phrased things, the slight grammatical things. It's so redolent of my grandfather, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's something I got from the movie as well. I mean, the place where it was shot, Pooncarie, my grandfather actually lived there.
Really?
So I felt really connected to this one when I was watching it, and the way that the man spoke and the accent, and almost, you know, having to listen quite hard to understand it because the accent's so broad. And I just really got a sense of connection with this one.
You just smile looking at it. And it's also, you know, when you get to the end, you realise that he died last year. You know, there's this sort of like, oh, there's a real poignancy to it. Now, the only thing about this, I had a little bit of a problem with the editing. I thought it was rather abrupt. You know more about this.
It's funny. Initially, I had a problem. What they've done is they've got the interview as the main structure, and they've got all of these cutaways, and they cut away and you see things, whether it be old photo or footage or something, you know, that it kind of illustrates what's being said. Because they haven't overlaid the sound, they're very jarring. Now, initially, I thought, oh, that's jarring. But then as I got into it, it's a very individual quality. So it literally has, you know, this wonderful story being told, and then these jarring little grabs that illustrate it. Whereas, you know, say a more traditional documentary would kind of use the sound to kind of smooth over those edges. I think by the time I'd finished it and watching it again, the jarring, they kind of, it gives it like some emphasis.
Did you think it worked for it?
I think ultimately it did.
Not for me. Because I looked at it again and again, and I just felt all the time that was the thing that jarred with that for me. And I also didn't feel that the cuts were long enough. I almost wanted them to be just ease up a little bit.
Yeah, a more traditional structure would have been able to do a more fluid transition, I think, through that. It's a curious thing. It's quite unique about it.
I kind of like the jarring effect of all of that, because I think that's also the nature of Video Lives, that somebody who's perhaps not totally knows everything about the equipment that they're using and maybe learning as well. And I really like the fact that it was kind of rough and raw. And it matched the kind of no crap attitude of the guy in the movie too. You know, this is what it is and this is how it sits.
But it's such gorgeous subject matter. And, you know, that's sort of like, well, people have got such short memories. They don't remember the 1940 40 drought. And I thought, oh, God, it must have been a horrible drought,
that one.
Yeah.
And I think that it's probably, you know, a credit to that film in terms of the huge number of people that submitted, that it's made it into the finals, kind of the emotional power of it, despite it being a bit rough around the edges. And as we'll see with some of the other films, you know, that are more polished, it kind of holds its own in its own way. Because I guess this honest portrayal of this man.
All right, let's check in with the next one. This is from a filmmaker from Brisbane called Hayley Bartholomew, and in this one she gives us a very special look at her life in the suburbs of Brisbane.
At a glance, my life isn't overly interesting. I'm not working with refugees or children at risk. I'm not travelling the world or even Australia. My place, my story, is a little more ordinary. I live in Brisbane, the suburbs. I have a husband, 2 kids, a station wagon, and yes, even a white picket fence. I can't say that this is what I'd planned. But each day there are these moments. Little gems in motion that I captured to my memory. I know later, when I'm free to chase my dreams, these will remain my true treasures. There is an African proverb that says, "I am lost and I rejoice in the openness. I cannot decide where to go. So for now, I will dance where I am and be. There is no goal, no destination, life and being. I sing and dance and live in the wilderness, and I am home." I always wanted an interesting life, but I'm happy that this is my place. I can't believe the treasures I'm finding right here in my own backyard. This is a special place. This is a special story, and I'm the luckiest to have discovered my life so beautiful.
Every day I live. Every day I live. You've given me love that lasts forever. Hope that's found in you. Joy that's everlasting. Home to see me through.
A rather gorgeous view of suburban life there from Hayley Bartholomew, Brisbane, the suburbs. Robert, what did you think of that one?
Look, of all of the finalists, I think this is the one that comes out of a tradition, really, of the home movie. And what I love is it's like, here's a filmmaker who's kind of stepped up, you know, from a traditional home movie you might show your friends of your family, and actually given it some kind of broader context, you know, this idea of these simple moments in her life that matter and that are significant. And there's a couple of clever little things in the way she structured it. I love the kind of final moment where it pulls back and observes the family through the window. And I guess, you know, something I was talking about earlier, you know, with the whole new technology thing, people are able to make these more easily. I guess what we're going to see is people are going to actually be starting to say, well, I don't just have to cut together a home movie. I can actually have some kind of, you know, thematic issue that I want to explore in it, which is what this filmmaker's done.
Well, you know, looking at the romance in your life, you know, which is what's beautiful about it. But what impressed me about this was that it is a home movie, but she's got real film language talent.
Right, that's right.
You know, just in that opening shot, and I don't know how difficult it is to get that as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
You know, but you're travelling through the suburbs and you come up to, and she's even got the white picket fence, and there you are at the white picket fence. How is it easy?
No, it's difficult. I mean, this is the thing. I think you know, I don't know whether, you know, generally people are incredibly cinema literate now, you know, about screen language and how they can use the camera. Because you're absolutely right. There's lots of times where she puts the camera in places where, you know, it's perfect for the kind of drama of the moment.
But I also love the yearningness in it.
Yeah.
And this is one I related to. You might be a country boy, but I've been a mother, you know, and I know what it's like. And, you know, that you do take joy in the moment. And, you know, you've got these kids that you adore. But at the same time, you wanted an exciting life, and not one that was necessarily totally bound up with house and nappies and all the rest of it. There's this gorgeous cuteness in the kids as well, you know, and the way they're entering into the joy that their mother has in them. You know, there's a behind the camera, front of camera, absolute connection that I thought was very strong.
If someone, you know, you can tell with a still photo if someone's looking into the camera, whether the photographer is someone that is intimate with the person that's being photographed. And there's a real sense in this, isn't there? The person behind the camera has a very strong emotional bond with these children.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought that, but now I realise that's where the power of the film comes from. The subjects are really looking at the camera with real joy and love, and you don't get that very often.
You know, that's what's lovely about it.
Absolutely. This next entry comes from Jonathan Chong, who's a Melbourne lad, and he's put together a kind of a bicultural view of his family life. It's called Chang Lee is My Middle Name.
I wouldn't be here telling you my story if it weren't for these two people, my mum and dad. They met in London. It was 1973. My dad is Chinese Malay and grew up in a village called Suni Besai, not far from Kuala Lumpur. He left home at 19, ending up in Lucerne, Switzerland. He learnt to speak German and soon began a hospitality training course in a hotel called Chateau Gouche. My mum had been working in London at the same time, and she met my dad whilst in a queue for a theatre show. In 1974, Mum and Dad were married in the Bayside suburb of Sandringham in Melbourne. It would still be another 5 years till I arrive on the scene, but first my older sister Kate was born in 1976. She did about 3 years of groundwork for me, and then, in 1979, a small package arrived. My parents didn't stop there. The third sibling born was Tessa. She's my little sister, and this is a recording of her singing talents when she was 5. When the three of us were born, our grandparents came from Malaysia to spend some time with the new arrival. I always remember a strong scent of Asia that would permeate throughout the house when they would stay. It's hard to describe, but it's kind of like a mixture of tiger balm, incense, and new batik cloth. We made a trip to Malaysia when I was about 1, but I don't remember any of it. My only memory of that event is from photos and stories that Mum would tell me. I had an awareness from an early age that I looked different from the other kids. Even though I went to a primary school that had children from lots of different ethnic backgrounds. People have said I look South American, Greek, Japanese, and even Russian. Mum tells a story about when she took Kate and I to the supermarket when we were little kids, and the checkout chick asked Mum if we were adopted. I've always felt more Australian than Chinese. I suppose I grew up surrounded by Australian culture. But we still celebrate Chinese New Year and eat a lot of Chinese food. When I was little, I hated the Chinese food Dad used to serve up. I used to hide the Chinese broccoli under my rice or try and wash it down with glasses of milk. I craved roast lamb and white bread for dinner. Don't get me wrong, I love Chinese food these days. From an early age, I've always liked drawing and making things. I used to spend hours on the floor of our kitchen making intricate cities out of wooden blocks and Lego. My first sketchbook was given to me at the age of 8 and paved my way to being a graphic designer. I think my maternal grandmother had a great influence on my creativity. She was a commercial artist in the 40s and used to paint designs onto textiles in China, and during the war, her job was to label radar sets. Even though I feel mostly Australian, it's interesting to see how other people view me. But I feel privileged to have grown up in a family that has come from 2 different cultures. From an early age, I was exposed to different foods and customs. This has made me the person I am today.
From Melbourne, that's Jonathan Chong with Chang Lee is my middle name. What were your thoughts on that one, Robert?
I really enjoyed this film. You know, I loved the kind of jigsaw puzzle-like nature of it. You know, the fact that he's gone back and looked through his life and found all sorts of pieces. You know, I particularly love the audio recording he's got, and he just kind of cheekily puts the little animation up for it. But I think at the end of it, the accumulation of all of the pieces lifts it beyond just his own personal story. You know, something kind of, you know, this observation of his own experience in terms of the Chinese-Australian cultural mix. You know, I really enjoyed.
I loved in particular the bit where he said, I hated Chinese food when I was younger, and my dad would cook up Chinese food, and he said, I love it now, he's eating it. But the animation, the kind of, well, not animation, I don't think you'd call it, but the still sort of filming that he did there to cover up the food as he used to do when he was a child. I loved that way of thinking.
It's very playful, isn't it, how he's done that? It's
Yeah,
very
I
playful,
love
which
the
I
comedy
like.
in this.
Yeah.
And not only that, I thought this is a real filmmaker at work.
Yeah.
I really thought, you know, just in terms of imagination, in terms of using all his skills, you know, as a designer. And I love the the emotion in this film. You know, I love cleverness and emotion, and basically this one had it for me. I thought it was really fantastic.
Because the filmmaking is it's exceptional, isn't it? I mean, the way he uses sound and the way he assembles the pieces.
Well, you know, just that idea of getting into a photo machine or whatever it is and taking those films of shots of himself at the beginning of the film. You know, it's sort of like it's about your identity, and that's stated right at the beginning of the film, and I love that. And they're done with humour, and I just thought, wow, I loved every moment of where he was taking me.
Yeah, that thing he says too about, you know, he can't remember anything except what he's been told by his mother or the photos or the images, and that idea of how do you piece together your life before you really clearly remember it.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I think the photo thing sets that up quite interestingly, because I know I've got memories that I think I remember from when I was very little, and then I find a photo in my parents' photo album and I realise I have no memory of the real event. I have a memory of looking at the photo, which informs the way I reflect on my past.
Yeah.
And I think he's kind of managed to be honest about that, I guess.
No, and I love that, you know, that relishing that multicultural experience and being very comfortable within it, you know, being an Australian but relishing, you know, his father's background, Malaysian background and family, and all of that brings that mix into him as a whole person. It's a whole person making this film. I just really thought it was beautiful.
There's a lot packed into a very short film.
There is, and very clever too, as you said, the combination of lots of different styles. Okay, this one comes from Launceston in Tasmania, and it's from a filmmaker called Fiora Cutler, and it's Life in Amy's Family. Let's take a look.
Some donuts, some bun. Don't get crabby.
Disaster. Death. Terrible. Earthquake. Flood. Lovely day.
Okay, and you hungry? Want a cup of tea, cup of coffee? How about some noodle? I got an egg there, some bun, some donut. It's cold in here. You want a heater? I put a blanket on you. I bought you a fish. Think you should see the doctor. How's your coronary distension of the cerebrovascular embolic infarction? You know TB is going around? Do you think David's gay? Shh, he's coming. Hello, darling. Just making you some focaccia.
Oh, Mum, don't you mean focaccia? Hi, Dad. I'm off to dance class now. Do you like my new dress? I borrowed it off Amy. Oh, well, I'll see you later. Bye.
Hi, Dad.
Amy, 俾落河了，去燒衫較快。媽咪對你係咩事路啊？爹哋得落去，叫去買古靈，冇落地了。哦 ，Amy 啊，有 brandy 哦 ，brandy 淡薄嘅啦，我食。
Gee, you're smelly.
I'm out of here.
Oh, I told you not to eat so much cabbage.
Oh, Charles, I always loved you.
Oh, Amy, don't squeeze your pimple. It'll get infected. You be careful. You know you might get a gangrenous tumor. Look, I put betadine on it. That's better. Good night, Amy. You cold? Don't forget to turn off your electric blanket. You'll die of dehydration. You want another blanket? Good night.
That was The Girl and the Planet, Life in Amy's Family by Fiona Cutler. I love this movie, in particular the recurring theme throughout this one with the pimple. Now, I don't know about you, but I still get them, and watching this I was just going, oh God, yes, that's just so onto something there. Margaret, did you enjoy this one?
I absolutely love this one. I think it's so clever. I think the animation is beautifully simple, tremendously, informative. I love the use of the real shot outside the window. I thought that was such a stroke of genius, really.
Yeah.
But, I always connect to things emotionally, and I connected to the humour and the pain, not just from the pimple, and the frustration, I suppose. You get a real sense of there's a little bit of cruelty in there as well that I actually embraced. I thought it was beautifully judged, and I loved whoever played the mother in it is brilliant.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's the thing. I mean, it's kind of a no-holds-barred look at her family, really. She's very honest about who each character is and what they represent to her and her family, and I really like that honesty. I thought that was quite strong and powerful and simple as well.
And, to choose animation to do a portrait of your family, I mean, I love the fact you can, I mean, South Park has kind of allowed people to do anything. You don't need to spend money on the animation, it's much more affectionate, actually, to see this family in that very simple style of animation.
Yeah. But it is South Park inspired.
It is, yeah.
Absolutely. I hadn't
and some
thought
of
of
the
that.
humour in it, actually, the ability to be a bit more wicked about your own situation. I mean, I think something that's been prevalent in most of these is this great sense of humour.
Yeah.
And the ability to kind of look at your own life with some, ironic, humorous context has been great. There's a lot of funny stuff happening in this in the sound design too. Like you say, the characters, the voices, the sound effects, it's very, very playful. I mean, it's wonderful seeing this animation, and the other films, and realising the different ways people have chosen to document their lives. You've got more traditional home movies, you've got a kind of a collection of images and fragments from someone's past, you've got a more traditional direct-to-camera story, you've got this wonderful animation. I mean, you've got the poetry of, the first film we looked at, City Lights. I mean, it is fascinating that people find a different way using, what is a kind of very clear parameter of duration and, to explore their own lives. I think that's been great.
This one is such a portrait of a family, with such a clear eye. Even the grandmother.
Oh, I love the grandmother.
When they're all sitting on the couch, that portrait moment's great,
Oh, beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Yep. No, I think this is a great film by Fiora, and definitely, indicative of the high standard that this competition has, the entries that this competition has received. So.
I think everybody, needs to be congratulated. Really.
Definitely.
So much on the work they've done. And they ought to feel really proud.
Yeah, and it's kind of a triumph over having something to say rather than worrying about polishing it all off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up our look at the finalists, and what a great collection of stories they were too. As I mentioned earlier, we've also conducted a viewer's pick on the website as well, so we asked of you to click on the link and basically vote for your favourite of the finalists as well. And the lucky winner will walk away with a grab bag of goodies from the ABC shop. The votes have been counted. Robert, I'm going to give you the honour. Who has been chosen as the viewer's choice for Video Lives?
The winner of the viewer's choice is Hayley Bartholomew's Brisbane, the Suburbs.
I know later when I'm free to chase my dreams, these will remain my true treasures.
It's interesting that they responded so strongly to that story.
I think possibly because it was such an emotional movie as well, and as you explained earlier, the way that the children looked into the camera, it really invited you in, and perhaps people could respond to that.
And the fact that it dealt with, a specific, but really went to a general statement too about life.
Right. Yeah.
It was bigger than that's seeming content.
Yeah, it makes you kind of consider how you could look at your own life like that.
Yes.
And it is, I think, maybe of all of them, the one that's closest to an extension from the more traditional home movies that you might make. And I think probably the viewers found that quite affecting.
Excellent. I think that's a fantastic choice from the viewers. And if you want to see more of the movies that were entered into the Video Lives competition, if that's whetted your appetite, then head to the website abc.net.au/Video Lives, and you can see loads more up there right now. Well, we had a hard time deciding as well. Coming up with a winner for the Video Lives competition wasn't as easy as we thought. The quality of the entries was so high. So after much discussion and locked in a small room, we finally came up with a winner for the Video Lives competition. And Margaret, I'm going to hand the honours over to you to announce the winner tonight.
Well, it was tough, but it's a great pleasure to say that we chose Jonathan Chong's Chang Li is my middle name. Congratulations.
When I was little, I hated the Chinese food Dad used to serve up. I used to hide the Chinese broccoli under my rice or try and wash it down with glasses of milk.
I think we all agreed that, the technical proficiency of the film was exceptional. It had a great, structure to it with the kind of jigsaw puzzle of his life.
It had humour and, this beautiful, sort of acceptance of the wholeness of him as, this sort of lovely message in the film as well. No, and I think he's a filmmaker. I think he's going to be.
I think that's what really
chasing in your
distinguishes
footsteps, Robert.
Good.
Well, definitely well chosen, and it certainly was a great insight into Jonathan's life, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Now, thank you so much, Margaret and Robert, for helping us out tonight with your insights and obviously your expertise in all things film. It's been a pleasure.
Well, who would have thought it to be such a great pleasure? It really was.
Well, I'm off to Melbourne now to try and surprise Jonathan. See you soon. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
It's Myth from Video Lives. Is Jonathan here yet?
No, he's not. Quick, come in.
Excellent. Thanks. When you saw the movie that Jonathan made, did you have similar experiences or did you have similar memories to what I guess Jonathan had portrayed in the movie?
No, pretty much similar, although I liked Chinese food, whereas, he went through about how he washed it down with milk and he'd hide it all and all of that, whereas I quite enjoyed it. So in that respect, that wasn't an issue for me. But the little things he pointed out about saying how some people think he's Italian and Turkish and all of that, I mean, I get that quite a bit myself. I get, are you Spanish? Are you Italian? And, that's sort of how we've grown up, thinking that, we're a little bit different from everyone else, but overall we're Australian. So yeah, in that respect, I guess I saw that side of it in his movie.
And Tessa, what about you when you watched the movie for the first time? Did you say, look, this is very similar to the way my childhood was?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I could, identify with a lot of what he was pointing out in the film. That whole, people don't know exactly quite where I'm from and always asking me and things like that, which is interesting. And just, the memories, the way he filmed, the photos of... We've always had stories from when Mum and Dad met, and it was good because he was able to, recreate that through the photos.
Do you think the movie gave you guys any more insight into Jonathan and the way he saw his childhood?
I think it is. The style is really him. Yeah. The way he's chopped it up and,
Yeah, and he hasn't got any secrets to hide or any bad things. He's a pretty genuine sort of guy. So, it says a lot about him. It's a very sensitive film, I think.
Yeah. Chris and William, how did you feel when Jonathan said he was going to make a movie about your lives and his life?
Well, we first of all thought it was going to be more about just Jonathan. We didn't realise it was going to sort of document our life from his beginning. But when we saw it, we were really touched.
And William, it was you who did a lot of the photography, is that right?
Oh, when they were young, yes, just to capture the moment of when the toddlers and then we do a lot of camping and all that.
Jonathan's view of his childhood, was it the same as how you saw him growing up?
Yeah, I thought it was a fairly honest portrayal of his childhood because he was always sort of fairly keen on everything. In the photos he's got a very natural enthusiasm. And also he's very, he can concentrate and do a project quite thoroughly.
How did you feel when you first saw Jonathan's movie?
Well, straight away I just loved it, and I said, Jono, that's really lovely, and also I was very touched. It was just a very sort of, I don't know, heartfelt. It was just, came from right inside him, you know.
It is fantastic that he can manage to capture the moment of when he was a bub to what he have done for the past 26 years. I think it's excellent that he has achieved the things that he was always dreamed for. Eh?
Did you both know that Jonathan didn't like Chinese food?
Oh, we just fed him with Chinese food. I didn't know that till he told that he hates Chinese food. But end of the day is that he still managed to cook for himself nowadays. That is easier than preparing other food.
Hi Jonathan, I'm Myth from Video Lives, and I wanted to let you know, I know it's all a bit of a surprise,
wow,
but I wanted to let you know not only did you make it into the top 5 of our competition, you actually won the competition. So I'd like to hand over right now your fantastic prize.
That's amazing.
Can you? Oh,
wow.
Looks schmick.
Thank you so much.
It's all right.
Blown away.
Did the family keep a good secret from you?
Totally, yeah. Knew nothing about it.
It's unreal. Wow.
No? Fantastic, Jono. Oh, we'll now be able to make more films.
Congratulations, Jonathan. How do you feel now that you've won the Video Lives competition?
I feel actually relieved. Yeah, but ecstatic. Yeah, it's fantastic. I was really excited when I got the letter that I was a finalist, and I sent it out to all my friends, and was just waiting just to get a word.
As part of your entry, you've delved into your family history. Was it satisfying looking back?
Yeah, I mean, it was great sort of digging through all the old photos and all the old Super 8 footage, and yeah, getting all the old stories of how Mum and Dad met and all that sort of stuff. So,
what was the process of developing your narrative?
I sort of wrote a script, a short, sort of succinct script, to try and keep it down to the 5 minutes, and it was pretty hard to actually keep it under 5 minutes because there was quite a lot I wanted to tell, so I ended up cutting heaps out. But I actually started with, I had already had a few ideas in mind, a few stories that I wanted to tell, anecdotes about my family and my family's life and things like that. So I had them as a starting point, and I suppose I'm a very visual person, so I use a lot of things such as photographs and, like I said, Super 8 film and drawings and animations, and I knew I wanted to make it quite sort of like a pastiche of my family. Anything that I didn't have, I sort of created, like those little stop motion animation sequences and things like that. Yeah.
I loved the bit with the tape when you had your sister
yeah, that's
singing,
right,
and you did the little animation of the tape.
Yeah, because there's even audio as well from when, I think that was when Tessa was 5 and I was 8. Yeah.
So when you put it all together, was there anything in it that you think your parents didn't know about your childhood and your growing up when they finally saw it? Do you think there was anything in there that might have surprised them?
Maybe not surprised them, but sort of maybe gave them a bit more of an insight to what it felt like for me growing up as a kid who sort of looked a little bit different, or who came from a different ethnic background to all the other kids at primary school and stuff like that. And I think it was great. When I showed them, they loved it and thought, oh, it was fantastic, and it was sort of something that they can have as well, because it's about them. It's not just about me; it's about them as well. Because you are your family, so
yeah.
I think it was a great sort of little insight that they had into me and themselves, I suppose. So yeah.
True,
yeah.
And they're obviously very proud.
Yeah.
They're very excited.
Yeah.
Do you plan to do more short films? What are your plans for your movie making future?
I've got lots of ideas. I've got heaps of ideas. It's just a matter of putting them down on paper first and planning and mucking about with the technical aspects of filmmaking as well as the creative side, because as a graphic designer it's similar in a way, like you have to have technical skills as well as that sort of creative mind and ideas, so it's the culmination of those two things and then crafting it and making it. So I want to be making short films and even docos. Like, I'm into real life stories and I love reading novels about real life experiences that people have had and people's lives, so really like to make documentaries and short films to begin with, I suppose. They're my two sort of passions.
Well done.
Cheers.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like our prize has gone off to a good home. Congratulations to Jonathan, and I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of his work in the near future. Well, that's it for our great journey through some incredible lives. We do thank you for your entries. We've enjoyed watching your films and also for sharing your very personal stories with us. If you want to check out more of these films, then don't forget, over the next couple of weeks we will be screening 2 Best of the Rest specials, but you can also check out the films at any time on the ABC website, abc.net.au/video lives. So that's it for me. Bye for now, and keep on enjoying those amazing lives.